New England is one of the most historic and culturally rich regions in America. A lot of stuff has originated here. Chocolate chip cookies, stamps, and the sport of basketball, just to name a few.
We also have things here that are quintessentially New England. Things like clam chowder, Maine lobsters, Vermont maple syrup, Boston baked beans, and Boston cream pie. And stuff that isn't food, too.
Join us as we discover other unexpected New England originals in food and beverage, entertainment, sports, community engagement, and more.
I'm Greg Moon.
I'm Megan Wilson,
and this is New England Originals.
You'd be hard-pressed to get too far in Boston without seeing someone carrying a white box with bright blue font tied with a string bow. That simple description makes the mouths of Bostonians water, as we know those iconic boxes carry even more iconic pastries from none other than Mike's Pastry.
Mike's is one of the best-known Italian bakeries in Boston, and arguably the entire country. For our first episode of the New England Originals podcast, we are pleased to have Joe Papa, second-generation owner of Mike's Pastry. Joe, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So, Joe, what kind of guy was Mike Mercliano, the Mike behind the famed Mike's Pastry?
So it depends on how you look at him. As a boss, he was a boss. Family meant absolutely nothing. It was all about the work while you were in work. Outside of the store, he was just a regular guy. He was sometimes pleasant to be around, sometimes not so pleasant to be around. He was a bit of a father figure, although he married my mom when I was 16 years old, so it wasn't the typical father-son relationship. I called him boss because he always introduced me as my son Joseph, but I always kind of felt uncomfortable saying my father, Mike, because he was my stepfather. But he was a good guy. But again, in the store, he was different. Like, it was really, I don't want to say the exact opposite, but in the store, you knew he was the boss, you were the worker. That was it.
So that's interesting to me to hear that, because I feel like, family-run businesses, I think everyone always likes to think it's like this big, happy family all the time. But obviously, there has to be challenges that come with being a family-owned business.
Absolutely. So one of the things that Mike taught all of us is the way you run a business is you be the hardest worker. Let the workers work at your pace, not see, well, he's doing that, so it's okay for me to do this. So, like, for instance, my brother, he works every hour the business is open from Wednesday morning, an hour before, until 5 o'clock Monday. So he's there every single hour, an hour before, an hour after. And he got that from Mike. Mike lived in the store. He was never not part of the store or in the store. He told you what had to be done, expected you to do it, was there, but my brother is actually hands-on from the moment he gets in the store. Like, he's there at 7, maybe 6:30. He's putting up orders to get them out to the other stores. Once that's done, he's in the back and he's making cakes. And he makes every cake, every cake slice that we make, he makes. And now he's doing it for 4 stores. Lunch, back in the back. At the end of the day, he's out front and he's the fastest counter-help worker that we have.
And how long has he been?
Oh, it's going on 35 years. It's got to be going on 35 years. So I became a trooper in 85, and I think right around 86, Mike said, listen, I don't want to do this by myself. I need someone here. I want to live my life. My brother was in Florida. He was a general manager or a manager of some Dodge dealership, the number one Dodge dealership in the country at the time. I couldn't tell you what the name of it was. And he says, do you want to come back? And I remember my brother telling me, he goes, but he's got to pay me this. Like, this is what I'm making selling cars. And I was like, I'm sure he will. And he's been, he's been pretty much doing it ever since.
Back when the bakery opened, there were no pastry classes or cake decorating classes. This was the 1930s and 40s. So what inspired him to make cannoli, and how did he teach himself?
Okay, so Mike came from Avellino when he was 7 years old. When he got into high school, he started running into some, I don't want to say problems, but issues. The Italians that were already here kind of picked on the newer Italians, and he didn't like it. So he started to go hang out with his cousin. I don't even think it was his cousin. I think he was more of a paisan from the same paesa. And he started hanging out at the bakery, and then he started working in the bakery. And while he was learning, he started to get paid. So he was getting paid like 50 cents a week, something like that. And it helped his parents with the rent. So he didn't go to school anymore. He just started to learn how to be a baker, how to decorate and recipes and such. And the name of that place was Mondello's. And then from there, he hooked up with another paisan, Rocco, and they were co-owners of Rocco's. Although Rocco's was already there, Mike joined Rocco, and it's an interesting story. There was a radio show that called, and if you could guess the name of the song, you win $1,000, which was, I guess, a lot of money back then, right?
Well, if you're making 50 cents.
Well, no, he had moved beyond the 50 cents. He
Gotcha.
was legit. He was a part owner of Rocco's. But he didn't get the money. And Rocco felt like, since it was his bakery first, that he should have the money. And it rubbed Mike the wrong way, and he felt like he couldn't trust him anymore. And in 1956, he said, I'm gone, and opened up his own place. So the one thing I wanted to add, before we get too far in and I lose my opportunity, you gave me 4 dates to try to do this. Today was not a coincidence. Today would be Mike's 100th birthday.
Come on.
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
I love that.
Cheers to that.
Yeah,
Cheers,
cheers
right?
to Mike.
Salud.
How much?
Chindan.
Well, I feel like Mike would want us to probably toast with a cannoli, too. You did bring some for us.
Yes,
so
I did.
I'd love to kind of talk through these a little bit. And we want to know, what are the top 3 selling cannolis?
All right. So I get this question all the time, especially, obviously, when I'm working in the store. And undoubtedly, it is the plain, which is the regatta now. It used to be the plain, now it's the regatta. The chocolate chip, the pistachio. But I maintain it is those 3 because when people ask, that's the answer.
Yeah.
So they just say, okay, I'll have that. I feel like I could lure or steer someone into having any one of them. They've all been my favorite at some point in my life. Presently, it is the pecan caramel and or the peanut butter. And I always joke that the peanut butter gives me the false sense that I'm eating healthy. But there is something about the sweet with the salt.
So was there anything in the location where Mike's Pastry is now, or was it a new build?
No. So it was a storefront. And I think, and I'm not 100% sure of this, the original store was a bakery that closed that he bought and started Mike's Pastry. Stayed there for about 6 years. Then there was the current store, which was a laundromat. And the pipes had broken, and the owners didn't want to fix whatever had to be fixed from the dry cleaning. So they sold it to Mike. He moved in there in 1962, and he's been there ever since.
So you weren't always in the family business, right? I heard you had a long career as a state trooper before you got into it. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of both going on during your career, but would kind of love to hear about, what that career was like while the family business was still going and how you made the transition to really focusing on Mike's Pastry.
Sure. Let's circle back to your original question. What type of guy was Mike? I was 19 years old. I had left college. I knew college wasn't in the cards for me. And I had to go back and ask Mike, can I have a job? And he said, yes, absolutely. But don't come back to work. Work 6 months and then somebody offers you a better job or something else and you leave. Don't let me waste my time teaching you. He says, because I could teach you. Maybe someday you open your own store. And it sounded great. I was working 6 days a week at the time. And I was making about $340 a week, which was okay. It was decent money back then. I was a teenager. But it was 6 days, and you had Tuesdays off. And if you missed Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, he would take $100 out of your pay. Yeah, right. And I was like, you're with my mother. Give me a break here. But that just wasn't the way he was.
You got no weekend.
So my friend Dominic, him and I decide that we're going to take the state police exam. And he calls the store one day. My mother comes in the back and says, Dominic's on the phone. And he's like, hey, the test is November 10th. Saturday. And I was like, nope, I'm not taking it. And luckily, my mother was standing beside me. And she's like, what are you talking about? So I tell her, and I said, I'm not blowing $100, Ma. Just to take some stupid test that I'm probably not going to pass. And I can see it clear as day. She yells to Mike, who's in the office to my left, hey, Mike. And he rolls back in his chair, and he's like, what? Joseph's going to take the state police exam November 10th. It's on a Saturday. You'll still pay him for the whole week, right? I think he was just afraid of my mother. And he was like, yeah, all right, And he went back to doing what he was doing. So I took the test. I passed. I told my mother, I don't think I want to go. Like, I'm learning how to use a spatula. Mike has taken the time to teach me, how to make pastry. And it was a big deal because when I first worked there as a kid, like 12, 13 years old, I greased pans. I was the dishwasher. I was the guy who go downstairs and get a bucket of whatever. I didn't really work in a bakery other than I worked in a bakery. But he was teaching me stuff. And
skills.
And it felt great. And, and in my mind, I was like, maybe I can someday open my own bakery, but stupid. All I was really doing was ice and cupcakes and black and whites. But to me, it was a big deal. And I remember one day I came into work, and this is like January of 85. And Mike calls me in the office, and he says, listen, he says, I know what I told you about not wanting to leave and blah, 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 but this is a big deal. He goes, this really is a big deal. We used to have this joke, like, go to college, maybe someday you'll be the mayor and straighten everything out. He goes, this is better than being the mayor. He says, this really is. He goes, and I want you to go. He says, so I want you to make me a promise. He said, you go, you get through the academy, you don't quit. He goes, there's no quitting. You do it for 1 year. He goes, and after 1 year, if you don't like being a trooper, you come back. He goes, you'll always have a job here. So just go and do it. And I said, all right. I did it. And I ended up becoming a trooper for 22 years.
Wow.
As I look back now, it's like, I can't believe they gave me a gun and a cruiser at 20 years old. Like, go enforce the law, kid. But it was great. Nice. I really enjoyed it.
So you were in the Crown Vic era?
I was, yeah.
Those were monsters, huh?
They were terrible in the snow.
Oh, right, because of rear-wheel drive.
Yeah. You couldn't really help anybody.
So, you did that for 22 years, and then did you transition back to the bakery full time, or what happened next?
So I never really left. I still worked holidays. I used to, like during Christmas and Easter, I would take weeks vacation, go back and work in the back. Weekends, I tell you another funny Mike story. I would work Friday nights, Saturday nights behind the counter with my brother. And like Mike would give me $50 for the night. Meanwhile, I was not working a detail that I could make, 500 on standing there. But it was just, he didn't want you to leave, but he wanted you to be your own man. So he enjoyed that we came back to the store. But he also wanted us to have our own lives outside of the store just in case.
For sure.
Yeah.
Tell me more about being a statey, especially like in the 80s in the North End.
In the North End, right? So I went through a lot of BS in the academy. While I was going through the academy, the feds had sort of taken over the North End, the local mafia, so to speak. They were all being arrested at that time. And during chow in the mornings, I would have to, they would make me stand on the table. There'd be 100 classmates, eating breakfast. And they would make me read the newspaper articles of the day about all the people. And then they would ask me questions like, do you know this guy? Do you know that guy? And I answered as honestly as I could without, kind of being a jerk about it. But yeah, it wasn't easy. And I got married relatively young, 22 years old. I've been with my wife since I was 18. And we're both North End kids. But it was hard because she wanted to stay in the North End. But they used to tell me in the academy, like, you cannot have a cruiser without a driveway. You can't have a cruiser without a garage. Like, you have to move out of the North End. And looking back, I think they were wrong because I know there are a couple North Enders now who are troopers and they park their cruiser in the street. Maybe things were different back then. Right. But the North End was different back then. I never felt like it was an issue, me being a trooper and them being what they were. More drugs, So listen, the North End's a great place, but in the 70s and 80s, still an inner city place. There were still drugs. I can remember times I'd have my son in the carriage in the playground with my friends hanging out. My wife was working at the health center at the time. And you'd watch these kids walk down the street doing what they do. And my friends are like, are you going to do something? I'm like, I don't know. Like, am I supposed to? And you have half your bosses say, yeah, you're a trooper all the time. You walk into a bank, make sure you have your weapon with you. Other guys are like, don't crap where you eat. Just turn a blind eye. It's not that big a deal. You're not going to save the world. So there would be times I would listen to one, and there'd be other times I'd be like, nah, the hell with this, and I would do my job.
And now one of those drugs is legal.
Now one of those drugs is legal, yeah.
So a lot less work.
Well, I don't have to do it anymore, so yeah, it's definitely a lot less work.
Yeah. What makes Mike's the best cannoli, and what do you attribute your family's long-standing success to?
All right, so that's two different questions.
Okay.
I'll answer the second one first, and the answer is simple. Mike, his work ethic, his foundation for the business, second to none. All we've done is take what he already built and make sure you don't screw it up, right? Which is always a big deal for the next generation, right? You don't want to screw up what was already established. So I think we've accomplished that. Check for us. As far as the cannolis go, there is no doubt in my mind. What separates us from everybody else is we're the only place that makes their own cannoli shells. We hand rolled tens of thousands of cannoli shells every week. When I was a kid, we would roll cannolis maybe one day during the week and then a weekend day, like a Saturday afternoon. But right now we're doing it 5 full days, 3 nights where we have a crew come in just to make cannoli shells. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, my brother called me and said, you need to go in on Tuesday and have an uncle who works the oven. You, Uncle Joey, and Melvie, I need like 200 pounds of cannolis. So you go in, and it took us about 4 hours to do it. But that's just to keep up with our weekly, our weekly sales.
Sure.
So this is the analogy I always use. Two things. One, you go to an Italian restaurant, and if they make their own macaroni pasta, it'll say homemade whatever in a whatever sauce.
For sure.
And the reason they do that is because, hey, this is homemade.
Yeah.
It's not factory made, put in a box, sent someplace, picked up, thrown in boiling water.
And given the choice, that's the one you're going to pick.
Of course. And the second analogy is, when I was a kid, Thursday was macaroni night in my house. My grandmother.
Wait, not Wednesday?
Not Wednesday, right? I always say it. I don't know where they came up with Wednesday was French spaghetti
Go roll
day.
some cannolis. You're
Right.
out of your mind.
Right.
Thursday.
It was just always Thursday. And my grandmother would open up, boil a pot of water, open a couple boxes of macaroni, whatever it was, throw it in. It was nice. It was convenient. She always had a gravy or a sauce in the refrigerator or in the freezer, or she'd make a quick one. And that was dinner for Thursday. But every Saturday, my grandmother, again, my great-grandmother, my great-aunt Josie, and my great-aunt Emma would all meet at my grandmother's house. And they would spend hours at the kitchen table hand-making all different kinds of macaronis. Lina, which is a thicker spaghetti. Pappardelle, which is a little wider than that. Lasagna, cavadelli, gnocchi, ravioli. And then they would put it on a sheet on the bed to, I guess, dry out. I'm not even really sure why they did it. But they would spread it out there. And it would be like 10 pounds of macaroni. Then my grandmother with a funnel, and my grandmother was about 80 pounds, my great-grandmother, with a funnel and like the cow's bowel, whatever, in the meat grinder. And with her hand, she would stick it into the funnel. And then one of my aunts, when you got enough, she would get it and roll it all the way down to make a sausage, turn it, and then she'd keep going. And then my next aunt would do it, and then my grandmother would do it. And the point is, Thursday never compared to Sunday.
Or Sunday.
Sunday dinner, right?
Oh, because they're making that Saturday for
Saturday, right.
Oh.
So my thing is, every other bakery who doesn't make their own shells, and we're the only ones who do, their Thursday's meal. But Mike's makes it convenient for you to have Sunday dinner every day when it comes to our cannolis. And that's the difference between Mike's and everybody else.
I like that analogy.
I know we just opened up the box, but, we talked about how this is just such an iconic package. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how this came to be. Like, how long has this been the box, and how did that work?
Because I was thinking, you said 56, and then it was 60...
62.
62.
We moved across the street.
You moved across the street, so I look at this. It's been the same since then.
No. The old boxes had, so the location right now, when I was younger, it was totally different. The entrance was to the far left, and the front wasn't level. It was on an angle so that he could drop his grate, to protect the windows. And you had a little bit of an overhang. He figured, as he got bigger and more, busier, he figured I could gain some space if I brought the whole front out. So he put the door in the center. So prior to that, the box was the old front of the store with the entrance to the far left. And this was really only something he did to modernize the store. He figured he had made it, the inside modern. And he wanted something to not look as old as the old box did. Better design, so he came up with the block letters. The crown has been with us since the first time, and it was just as simple as, I'm going to be the king of pastry. I might as well have a crown. And that's what he did.
I love that. So that's the circle M on that. Is that for him?
Yes, it is.
That's so. I never even thought about that before. That's so cool.
So I think at one point he said, I didn't want to trademark it. He goes, but I figured if I put something there, it would look like it was. So he put the M.
That's awesome. So what other things have you guys modernized about the company over the last few years? I know you have multiple locations. I think you still only take cash in the North End, but I don't know about the other locations. But what changes have been made over the years?
I'd like to say that we are a fluid company. When I grew up in the North End, I didn't know Irish people existed. It was just everybody was Italian.
We do.
Yeah, right? So
we drink the beer.
It was a lot more Italian pastries, Italian delicacies. But as the neighborhood changed and, you get more tourists now than locals. When I was a kid, I think there were 4 restaurants, maybe 6. Now there's, I think, 110. So things change, and we just try to change with them. We don't make as many different types of Italian pastries, but we still make Italian pastry. We make the ones that sell the best. And I would say in the last 20, 25 years, cannolis had just become the it thing. Everybody loves cannolis, and so we make more cannolis than we ever did before.
Leave the gun, take the cannolis.
Yeah, right.
So in the back of the mics, that's where
right.
You're doing some bulk production, right?
Well,
because you have the smaller stores, you can't be doing all the. I'm not going to give away the trade secrets.
You can knock yourself out. Yeah.
Is that because
I don't know what the question is, so I'd love to answer.
So here, I'll use an analogy.
Okay.
The Harpoon Brewery, we brew kegs and cans here.
Right.
We brew our bottles at our brewery in Vermont.
Right.
We have a bottling line here, but because bottle sales are not what they used to be, the Vermont brewery can satisfy all the bottle requests. So do you have something similar to that with cannolis and North End versus, say, Assembly Square?
Absolutely not. Everything is made on Hanover Street. One of the things I think Mike taught my brother, and my brother has taken to the nth degree, is the only way you're going to assure quality is if you're there. Like I said, my brother works every hour. It's insane how many hours he works. But that was because it was ingrained in him by Mike. And my brother, although we do discuss it on occasion, maybe if we took the cannolis out of here, got a small place and just made cannolis, he's like, no.
Consistency.
No, right. Well, listen, we're the home of the cannoli, right? We're telling you that our cannolis are the best because they're homemade,
right.
Hand rolled. You want me to have somebody else overlook that, and I'm not going to be there?
No, I love it.
Right. So no, everything is made in Boston, and every store gets 2 deliveries every day: a delivery to start and a delivery to get you through the end of the day. And
if we had Jamie Shear here, our QC guy, he would tell you. It's one of the challenges of running 2 breweries is making sure that this IPA tastes exactly the same as the Vermont IPA. And what, crazily, one of the biggest hurdles is getting the water the same.
Sure.
Because our water comes from the Quab and it's very soft. It doesn't have a lot of minerals in it. Mountain water is full of minerals, right? So and beer is 94% water. Right.
So speaking of beer, we have been brewing a beer with you guys for a while now. It's been an awesome collaboration. I'd love to hear from you two. How did that come about? How did Mike's Pastry Stout come to be?
Oh, great. I get to start the story.
Okay,
sure.
Go ahead.
So Don Bailey, a friend of Mike's, he used to work for, it was called Jerry Remy's, and now it's called Tony C's. And when they opened their spot in Fenway, it was a monster bar, and I was selling beer to him, and so we got to know each other. And fast forward, the big place that went up next to the Garden, Banners, he got a job with the Patina Group. And so I was over there. Okay, when is Banners open? Tell me all about it. They've got a screen over there that's as big as the Green Monster that you can watch sports on, which is just phenomenal. And he was telling me all about, okay, so we're going to have this giant screen. We're going to have this. We're going to have this. There's golf. You can hit golf balls. And there's going to be a food court. And I was like, oh, cool. Who's going to be in the food court? He's like, all local places. You know, we're going to have Andy Husbands there. We're going to have Chris Parsons there. We're going to have Mike's Pastry there. And so he's going through a couple of the things. And I was just like, Mike's Pastry. And this bell went off in my head because probably 2 or 3 months earlier, we were sitting in a sales and marketing meeting. And Dan Canary was like, who else can we do a collaboration with? Like, does anyone know anybody at Mike's? That would be cool. Like, if we did a cannoli stout with them or something like that. This thing just popped in my head when Don mentioned that Mike's was going to be there. So I said, hey, do you know anybody from Mike's? He's like, oh, yeah, I know this guy, Joe Papa. He's a character. You're going to love him. I'm like, awesome. Can you introduce me? He's like, yeah. Let me, I can't just introduce you, like, let me talk to him first. And so I get the number and I give him a call. I explain like what I'd love to do. And I'd love you to come meet Dan Canary, the founder. And we happen to have we do a homebrew competition every year. And this is like one of the greatest days of my life, to be honest, because I had a beer in the homebrew competition and I invited Joe from Mike's, and it was your nephew, your son, who.
It was my son and my brother's son-in-law.
My brother's son. So he brings 3 people, and he gets to try the beers like that we're all trying for the first time. I've got a beer in the competition. I introduced him to Mike Tortorelli, who was the cannoli stout guy, and you guys hit it off. And then and my beer won the competition, and I made a lifelong friend with Joe, who lives in Stoneham, right next to Wakefield, where I live. So that's how I remember it.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Was it the best day of your life too, or just manners?
So it might have been, except when Greg and Donnie set up the meeting, they didn't put tomorrow. They said, is 11 o'clock good? And I was like, yeah, 11's great. And 11 o'clock, I was standing at Tony C's by myself. Well, no, with my son and my nephew. And I called Don. I said, I'm here. Where are you? And he said, oh, that's tomorrow. Did I not tell you that?
Did you know about that, Greg?
No, I didn't know about that.
So I was a day early. I was very excited.
Oh, that's awesome.
This past year, the collaboration raised money for the American Cancer Society to support breast cancer research. Why was that such an important cause for you and your family?
All right. So, first of all, breast cancer has always been near and dear to us because we have so many females who work for us. And we have sometimes like second generation daughters who are now working for us, all the counter help. So it's always been a big deal. But a couple of years ago, my brother's middle daughter was diagnosed with breast cancer, 30 years old, 2 children. And in fact, my brother called me just out of the blue one day, and he said, by the way, he says, the next time you talk to your friend Greg, from now on, money's going to breast cancer. I was like, okay, not a problem. And that's what happened. She's doing great now.
And that was
she's
also
clean. And
that's wonderful.
Yeah, and you all participated in the Real Men Wear Pink campaign too. I remember we shot some photos with you guys all wearing pink.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, all the so we are truly a family-owned business, a family-run business. My 3 children, my brother's 3 children, my sister's one son is full-time. One does some PR stuff for us from California. My sister's still in the business. I'm still in the business. My brother, like I said, just works. And my mother, who lives in Florida, when she comes back, she's really a thorn in my brother's side because she still goes to work. She'll go in the back room. One of the catchphrases that we use in Mike's is stay in your lane. Like, we do what we do. Somebody's always going to have another idea or something that is hipper or cooler. And if it's not what we do, like, just just keep doing it. It's working. Like, for whatever reason, it's working. Our business is, it seems, forever expanding. There's no reason to veer from what we're doing. And yeah, like, I'd like to learn how to play the guitar too, but it's not what, but it's not what I do, right? This is what I do. This is what we've been trained to do. This is what we've been, I guess, summoned to do. Like, hey, listen, this is your store now. Don't screw it up.
I did have one question for you. So, is it true that the line all the way to the left moves quicker? That's always my strategy, and I don't know if that's just a mental thing or, like, is that accurate?
All right. Yes and no.
Okay.
It's actually a design flaw.
Oh.
So, although the door is centered, there are showcases on your right, which makes it look like the door is over to the right. So when people come in, they want to go straight. And it's always a good idea to go straight, especially when you see my brother there, because he's faster than everybody else. I'm the only one who can give him a run for his money as far as speed, getting people in and out. So what happens is people go straight, and so we have a showcase in the middle, a showcase to the left as you're looking forward, a showcase to the right, and then 2 more showcases to the right. People will come towards the center and then veer off to the left, but they never veer off enough to the second girl. So the second girl on the far left always ends up getting the second person to the girl to her left in front, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you have the audacity and just decide to walk in, go all the way left and straight, a lot of times there's going to be nobody there and there'll be a girl right in front of you. But it's not that it's the fastest. It's just a design flaw of the store. And
that's always my move. That's always what I do.
You figured it out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's what the girls are always yelling, right?
Yeah.
Move over to the left.
They're
Everyone
right.
is just to fill that part of the store because instinct is straight. Just keep going straight and you'll get there.
I love that. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come be with us, especially on the 100th birthday of Mike. We couldn't be more excited to celebrate with you with these cannolis and these beers. So thanks again for being here with us. We appreciate it.
No,
absolutely.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Scotch is at your house on Friday?
Always. Well, not every Friday, but
Well,
always.
we'll be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.